All right, thanks for having us. Appreciate it. All right, I'm Mike.
I'm Hank.
Just to clarify. All right, we're going to talk about local media, local sports media, and the evolution that we're all sitting in the middle of at the moment. The first thing, and based on Hank's amazing career through the arc of managing venues, managing teams, managing media, networks, etc., one of the interesting questions is talking about fandom in general, before we even get to the media side, and thinking about what's the evolution of the fan. Is local fandom more valuable than national fandom? Has fandom decreased in any sense in this country? Just be interested in hearing your thoughts about fandom to start.
I think it all starts with local. I think it's all about local. I think people become fans of their local teams who they see their presence in their market on a constant and consistent basis. And from there, they then become, fans of all baseball, fans of all basketball, fans of all hockey, fans of all NFL and all other sports. But I think the local is the fundamental driver of the rest of the sports. Now, the local rights is one thing which brings the team in a local way. The national rights is a separate package, and they complement and work together. But again, I think local fandom has never been stronger, and with the advent of all the different choices fans have in order to consume local sports, it will only continue to grow and increase their passion.
Great. Awesome. I also agree. The Playfly sports business, we operate on the local fan and selling the advertising for the teams in the networks. So to follow up on that, and thinking about the constants in sports, one constant is the game's always going to be played. Another constant is the fans are always going to be watching. Another constant is the ads are always going to be there, whether they're in the outfield of the stadium or whether they're running in the 30 seconds breaks. But the one constant that seems to be now changing and not a constant anymore is how the fans consume, whether they're watching it on a phone, whether they're watching it on the TV screen, or maybe even on their refrigerator, for all we know in the future. But where do you think that goes in terms of consumption habits? Not necessarily business model, we'll take that one next, but in terms of consumption habits, and how do you think the fan interacts with that local game and over the next sort of 5-10 years?
Well, I think the consumption increases and will continue to increase because there's more ways for the fan to consume. And they're more convenient ways. I mean, the old days you used to, whether it was on the radio or you had to put your broadcast antennas up and go watch it. Now, we can both take our phones out right now and we can watch sports clips or pretty much anything else that we want. So the sports is always available everywhere, anywhere. Yep. And that just will increase and continue to increase consumption because consumption is about ease. The easier we make it for people to consume, the more they will consume, and that's what we've been finding. So while consumption on basic cable might be down, overall consumption is way up. Now, that doesn't mean that people are staying as long as they used to stay because some of these devices aren't made for 2.5 hours of viewing, but I think we'll continue to see consumption increase as choice and convenience continues to improve.
Great. Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. So let's take a step back and talk business model and the evolution of local media. Hank, your career actually has spanned the whole arc. I think you've been in the business and led a number of these businesses and evolutions yourself, whether it was through the connection to a distributor like Cablevision, through a TV network like MSG Networks, or through team ownership. Any of those elements over the years, when you look at it, has seen this evolution from the days then only a few of the games were on TV from broadcast up until all the games were on TV on cable networks to where we're going now. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you've seen historically the arc and the business models change and how the structure got us to the point we are today, where we're now questioning whether a traditional RSN network is going to be the business model of the future or not.
Right. Well, I think the RSN was the best thing that ever happened to local team sports. Before the RSN, you had a limited number of games that were appearing on broadcast television. And back at the time, the thought process, it only could be a limited number of games because team owners were concerned it would hurt their gate. When in fact, history has shown it hasn't. It's actually improved the gate and it's grown the local market fans. When a lot of the regionals got started, they got started more as premium channels, meaning like in HBO. So back in New York, Sports Channel New York started, and it was a premium channel, and actually Cablevision offered it deeply discounted with HBO right above basic cable. On its own, it maybe did 10%, and the package was HBO, it did better, meaning that 10% of the people would subscribe to it. In Philadelphia, there was a service called Prism that we owned that had sports and movies. So it had the 3 local sports teams and it had movies. So it was a combination of HBO and sports together because it was, packaged as both. Did about 10%. There was a channel in Los Angeles called Z Channel. It had the Dodgers, the Angels, and the Clippers, and movies. Did about 4%. So back in the day it launched, it was a premium channel, it was above basic cable. The economics didn't work. Z Channel actually went out of business because it couldn't make it work. Sports Channel New York ended up converting to basic. Out of Prism, Sports Channel Philadelphia was launched, which was, again, a basic channel, regional sports channel. The basic bundle is really what elevated all regional sports because the regional channel got carried in basic, it got paid over the entire subscriber universe, and it got not only the hardcore fans who wanted to watch the games, but it got the casual fans because it was there. Then as time went on, the basic bundle, there are 60, 80 channels. If you wanted to get basic, it was $60, $70, $80, and the consumers all complained. Technology moved and cable operators became digital, and you could buy only channels that you couldn't buy before. You could buy a channel all by itself. You can buy 8, you could buy 12, and the consumer wanted more choice. So the consumer basically on an average watched 8 channels, paid for 80, paid $70. And the cry for choice, which everybody heard, most people were saying, why do we have to get all these channels we don't watch? So people got their wish, and they got choice, and what they got is a lot more expensive programming, because when you broke up the bundle, the economics of scale went away, and now people can go and buy 4 streaming services, you can still get basic cable, you can get your internet connection, and you're paying multiples of what you paid before, and actually you have less, and your ability to navigate and know what's on is far worse than it ever was. So it's one of these interesting things that, again, people wanted at least to have the illusion of choice. They got choice. It costs a lot more money. And the economics of basic cable have all been on the decline for not only the regional networks, but for all networks. As we watched the earnings of the public companies where you can watch and see the trouble because the subscribers have been dropping. And it's hard to make up that revenue. And when you go back to the days of Sports Channel New York or Prism were being offered a la carte on your own, the economics just aren't there because if you can go and do 10% penetration, you need to get 10 times the rate you were getting before to break even,
right.
Not to mention the potential subscriber loss because the casual subscribers who aren't going to watch fall off. I know Playfly has done a tremendous job of aggregating the regionals by doing deals and selling it nationally across the board and has really been able to be innovative and keep those rates. But the decline in revenue is going to continue, and that's why I think what we're starting to see now is more creative ways in bringing bundling back. So you see announcements on the national level of 3 big media companies who are going to bundle their products. It's to try to recreate the bundle. You've seen an announcement in New York, which I don't think they've announced how it may be sold, but how YES and MSG Network are working together collaboratively. But I think what we'll see going forward, because people are really having a hard time, and the local economics are hurt, because that bundle has been somewhat broken. It's what's keeping people subscribed to basic cable, but the numbers continue to fall. And maybe they won't fall as rapidly as they have been over the last decade, but the bundle was a blessing to the regional sports business.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the grand rebundling, as I call it, which is wild because you're seeing that because everybody knows that that's the most effective way to get the consumers to get your content distributed. It's funny that that joint venture between the three big media companies creating a sports bundle, it's literally cable. Like
Yep.
they're literally the origin of their networks business. They're coming back to, which is wild. So it is all coming back to, it's like back to the future, as they say. But interesting when you think about these different networks that have been built up to carry all of the games in the RSN model over the last bunch of years, and now we're sitting with some haves and some have-nots. It's interesting to hear, especially in the New York market, where you look at Yes Network or an MSG network from your experience, and you look at the difference between some of those networks and some of the other networks that maybe aren't in a strong position. Just be interested in your thought pattern about how that evolves over time, and what the reason is for those differences, because I think that's going to help us understand what the future looks like as we see the networks that do have strength and why, and if we understand that, and the networks that don't and why, and then we're going to see that evolution probably play out.
Right. Well, it's an interesting thing because you hear, especially with what's happened with Diamond Sports, people talk about regional sports networks as if they're all the same. And there couldn't be anything further from the truth. So, you start off by just population, right? So look at the New York market and the market that MSG Network goes over and Yes Network. And I can't remember the number, but it could be 7, 8 million. Mm-hmm. Go to Cincinnati, go to Milwaukee. And you may be talking about 1 million or less. So first, that's your number of potential customers, not only to come to your venue, but to watch your games on local television. So there's always been a vast discrepancy between the rights, between the small market teams and the large market teams. The large market teams have enough revenue that even with the erosion that's occurred, they're still nice businesses. They're not what they were before, and they've experienced bottom line erosion because of that revenue. But they still can make for nice businesses, and the model can stay intact, less profitable, but stay intact. But some of the smaller market teams that don't have the ability to monetize over that same number of subscribers in their territories, it's a lot more challenging. Mm-hmm. So, what we're going to see going forward is the streaming revenue will come. It will add new revenue streams for a lot of the teams, but not in a significant enough way to offset the loss of revenue from the bundle.
And then with that reset, right? So if we see that reset happen, does that mean that the teams just end up with less revenue in their funnel? Or are they able to, in some way, find new revenue streams that they haven't, whether it's advertising, whether it's selling merchandise in ways that are more innovative than the past?
Well, I think they will. I mean, the teams are very smart, and they understand their markets better than anybody, and they'll figure out new and additional ways to go and exploit the rights that they have to exploit. The leagues are very, very smart, and we've all watched what they've done with the businesses and how they sliced and diced the rights on a national and international level to keep bringing in more revenue, and that revenue is shared equally with the teams, regardless of how big the territory is of each team. But it's hard to imagine that if the bundle continues to erode, that they'll ever be able to, on a local market basis, replace those dollars. And there are other things, right? There's gambling, and that presents opportunities, and how that can be integrated into broadcasts and local markets as well. Mm-hmm. And there'll be other applications that come up which will provide the opportunity for more revenue. And these businesses are run like real businesses, with sophisticated ownership, with sophisticated leagues. So they will work on it. But as it looks to local and local alone, it's hard to imagine the bundle keeps eroding, that one, the regional business will become less profitable unless the rights fees are reset to a level. And the question, again, what are the dynamics in each market that yield what the rights fees come at? But, it is hard to imagine growth in the rights fees that the teams will be getting, and a question more of, can they stay flat, or how much will they go down? And again, that's a market-by-market analysis.
Right, that's a fair point. Yeah, and the distributions will probably be tiered at some point in time as well, versus in the basic packaging.
Right.
So even though, it's going to be...
That's the other part. The distributor, forget sort of the cord cutting and the erosion that we've seen there, but a lot of the margin in basic cable has been sucked away by the regional sports businesses. So the operators for a while have been looking to get it out of the basic bundle because of that margin erosion. So there's always been a conflict there between the operator and the distributor.
Right, and it seems like the times now, the window we're in now is going to sort of break that log jam, I think. And then the goal is for those networks to figure out a business model, a reset business model in those tiers that allows them to.
Right, and hopefully they don't have too much debt.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've seen in the example of Diamond. If your debt is at a comfortable level, you can absorb the erosion.
Right.
Not that you want it, but if it's not, that basically puts your business at risk.
It's a great point, actually, because the actual Diamond business has cash flow. It's actually a cash flowing business. It's the debt that sits on top of it that actually takes it under. So you can see so many of the other regional sports networks that actually have cash flow. So it's not really, it's the dramatic nature of the situation is almost more of a debt problem right now than a business model problem, even though we're leading towards.
Right. Well, I mean, we've seen it before in other businesses when there's a buyout and they over leverage to go buy the asset, and there's a downturn and they can't make it.
Right. Right. So be interested in your opinion on big tech. We partner, we follow the game. So at Playfly Sports, we're following wherever the game is played. We're going to help the partner with the advertising or the team with the advertising. So as games have moved to Amazon, as an example, we've started to sell for Amazon in the same manner, organizing national sales across all the games in the country. Right now, Amazon's pretty much the only player that's went after local. What do you think happens with big tech and local? Do you think there's a play to go after local, or are they going to stay with the big national packages?
I think it's very smart. Local is local. Local is the strength. So you've watched these streaming services build themselves out without much of a local play. To the extent you can go add local sports, local news onto the package, you're going to get more subscribers in that territory. It's back to the future again. It's not dissimilar to what the cable industry did. Cablevision launched News 12. Cablevision carried all the regional sports networks, and that helped grow subscriptions back in the day to industry-leading penetrations. Now you go and you'll look at the streamers. Who all of a sudden has the bundle? You can disconnect from that basic cable package. The consumer can save the money if they can still get their local news and sports. Do they need their video subscription?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think part of the answer we may see in the latest NBA renegotiation of their national rights, and with the world of local media being an open season, do they start to pull some of those games back and put them into a package and sell them to big tech? We'll see here. It's all going to evolve in front of our eyes this year.
The leagues have done brilliantly, as I said before, sort of slicing, dicing the rights, figuring out new ways to exploit. And each time a package comes up, there's potentially a new entrant that forces the bidding to go to a different level. We watched way back when Fox decided to get into the broadcast business and they did the NFL deal. We watched DirecTV when Sunday Ticket came up, and they went and bid a hell of a lot of money for Sunday Ticket, more so than anybody else. And you can just look at the evolution as time has gone on. Then Amazon jumps in, Peacock jumps in, others jump in. And what you see is the new technologies over time and new competitors over time constantly resetting the bar for the rights. And I think we're watching how the NBA plays out right now. And I would imagine on a national basis, we'll see that being very successful for the NBA. And again, there'll be more revenue coming down from national that will flow down to the local to help offset some of the problems they're having from their local media deals.
Great. And as we're coming up on the end of our session here, I'll sort of leave with one question around advertising, big area of focus for Playfly Sports and what we do. But do you think as the local media landscapes evolve and as viewers change from TV viewers to streaming viewers, and younger fans decide, hey, they're going to watch the game on recap or on highlights, and really change the way the world works, how does advertising end up coming into play in all of those evolutions from your experience?
Well, I think advertising, as you all know, is selling them all. So there's more opportunities, and some are broader-based opportunities. So the efficiency of buying on the network is less than the efficiency of buying on the stream, where people are actually, for a fact, watching, and the more interactive and the more ability to go and interact with the advertisers. So I think the advertising potential just continues to grow and continues to be more of a portfolio, and potentially a bundled portfolio that you go out holding those rights on behalf of many teams, especially all the local teams, go out and sell and offer different products to different advertisers and with different levels of interactivity.
Great, great. If you could crystal ball, last question for you, crystal ball 10 years from now, how are you going to be watching Knicks games?
Well, I think you're going to be watching it every which way in technologies that we don't even dream about right now. There'll be more choice, which will lead to, again, even greater consumption. But unfortunately for all, with this greater choice and greater ability to consume comes greater pricing. So I think we'll continue to see that as the trend going forward.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that your storied career has made this a really amazing experience to hear from, as you've seen the arc of the whole local media ecosystem. So you're probably the best person in the industry, not only from a venue standpoint, from a distributor standpoint, from a team owner standpoint, but also a TV network standpoint. It's pretty amazing to hear you talk about that. So thank you for your time today. This is
Thank
great.
you, Mike.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if we're doing